The Court of Public Opinion is a part of the Amateur Radio Network. Thank you for listening to the Court of Public Opinion. I really think something has emerged here that you can't help but ignore it. I wonder if the media, like Megyn Kelly and Bill O'Reilly, I'm just throwing out my own opinion here. No, not really opinion, just an observation. I'm just wondering if people take the side of the pedos, because there's no emphasis on the actual victims. Now, when I was just going over an old report, Diane Sawyer, the veteran reporters, they never treated a case like this. I mean, you say what you want about the dinosaur media, but at least if the dinosaur media, they did one thing. They were careful in their accurate description of J.C. Dugard. I want to know if the media is a pro-pedo media. I think, David, you stick to the story, because I don't know anyone would feel comfortable. I personally would not feel comfortable in a room that somebody advocates for pedophilia, because that's what it's starting to sound like. I wonder if these people have a beef with victims and survivors, because I've noticed a switch in the world we live in. It'd be a lot easier to scapegoat the victim. This is called scapegoats, okay? It's a lot easier than actually being intellectually honest about what's in front of you. I think that's the story. Intellectual honesty, responsible reporting, because looking back at Diane Sawyer, looking back at some of the other reports, veteran reporters never did what these new reporters are doing. And let's highlight Stephen Colbert. You put Stephen Colbert and Megyn Kelly in the same room with Diane Sawyer. It ain't going to happen. Because Diane Sawyer at least gave JC and many of these victims an opportunity to share with the world their story. You know, you go on to People magazine, you hear the headline story that these girls in Cleveland were recovered after 10 years of captivity. Do you really think they would have gone with the same narrative that they're going with? Because this is the same kind of case. Okay? The case that happened in Cleveland, the case that happened in JC. These are all very similar cases. We're talking about girls that have been abducted for 10 years. And you got these kind of cases right now in front of you. So stick to the story. I agree with David. David Seaman. As far as I don't know if I would feel comfortable with a reporter going down this road. You can't. You don't even have a real case right now. Okay. There's plenty of shootings in Washington, D.C., but they had to bring in James Elefantis. We know there's controversy there. And I would say this, unless that case was actually properly investigated from beginning with, I wouldn't bring that in. That's not a serious story. It's a serious story because of what was exposed in the WikiLeaks. Okay, some people argue it's over and done with. Those things were out there, and then it's put out there in the public. The public has to process what's going on here. And then in the interim, Megyn Kelly brought in James Elefantis. I mean, it doesn't look good. You're either on the side of victims or you're not. Stick to the story. That's why I think from our observation, what we're watching, is that people are taking sides. You're not going to take the side of the victim. That's fine. Because that's what it looks to some of us, okay? I'm watching Megyn Kelly and I'm thinking, Megyn Kelly, please. Don't take the side. Don't make the abuser the victim, which a lot of people today, they don't take the side of the victim. They don't. I don't know why. It's a lot harder for a victim to get out of a situation that anyone would know. I don't know if that's and then I've heard they turn around and say, well, you have a victim mentality. I mean, you can't win with certain people. I mean, they really believe this. And it's a twisted world we live in. It used to be when the veteran reporters reported about a victim's case, and now you're seeing such an uptick in cases since the last 10, 20 years, that I think it's just too easy to sit there and make an opinion about something you don't know the details. And I'm going to say this, and I'm going to let that rest. None of these people have ever lived through abuse and trauma. There's no possible way they would feel comfortable with what they're saying if they weren't living in their cozy, comfortable apartments and they did not understand the threat that or live through an ordeal. Because I talk to reporters that have lived through ordeals, personal. There's a reporter from ABC who was covering Arab Spring. She was raped. She became one of the strongest voices against this. In this case, she was gang raped. You're never the same person, so I don't even know how. If a reporter really, really cared about a story, because I think you have to care about the people you're reporting with. And it's obviously that, to me, I think I'm just making maybe an observation. I think that Megyn Kelly is just legalist, and it's easier to take that road than it is to report something as hard as a case involving victims and abuse and stuff like that. So it's a lot easier, maybe. I don't know. Maybe she felt more comfortable. I don't know how. I can't assume. This is an observation. As far as like Alex Jones, this is not really his deal. Like, he's pretty much into other things. Like, it's not that I think some people, their specialty is like certain topics like military warfare, things like this. But this is a type of different, this is like Vietnam. Vietnam, when, you would be in an ambush and the soldiers would get out barely alive. I mean, you're dealing with, like, when you think in terms of a victim, you think in terms of a POW. And they have they exhibit all the same signs as a POW. This is like Vietnam. Okay, this is their war story. So if you were like a war correspondent, you would probably be looking at it like that. You're in a war zone, okay? And you're trying to find out how to help the victims escape their prison. That's the way I look at it. But I don't see as Megyn Kelly as a war correspondent. I don't see Bill O'Reilly as a war correspondent. I mean, you're embedded. You're embedded on something very big. And when you stick to the story, because that's really what the whole idea about journalism is. It's journalism 101. You don't make the story about you. And I think what I'm seeing is and I want to point out, because I want to take the side on David, because I think you're right on. David, my observation, because I don't watch these other BuzzFeeds, but they're not acting in a journal. They're not doing what journalists do. They're trying to make you the story. And what they're doing is they're making themselves look like they lack all credibility as journalists, as far as I'm concerned, because they're not even talking about the actual story. They're making you the story. And now what it looks is, in the end, they become the story. So it just shows you they broke all the rules as far as journalism. They don't know how to be journalists. And but I have one thing to say about the girl that came to the stage, the Huffington Post. She didn't belong there. So to me, this is the immature lack of experience, and it goes back to the veteran reporters. I know veteran reporters wouldn't be doing that. That's how I see it. We've seen veteran reporters, how they report. They don't go showing up at a protest and then take the stage and turn it into something else. These people aren't real reporters, okay? So consider this. I mean, did you ever think that maybe that some of you guys are individually targeted and that's called like being ambushed? Did you ever think that in terms of being a reporter that this is all like a big war story and people are taking sides? And again, it goes back to the story. That's kind of what the whole point to journalism is about. It's not about who it is. I'm just saying from an observation, because I can't consider myself as an embedded reporter. I can't look at that. I can't look at it from that vantage point. I didn't go to school as far as that. I mean, I've gone to school, but I'm just looking at it from a different observation. And I'm looking at the reporters. If you're an embedded reporter, there's a certain criteria you have to meet. That's what I'm looking at. And I'm looking at the public. Are they going to react and respond to this? Do they respond to people like Bill O'Reilly? Well, he has his own following. And maybe that's because it's on cable TV and it's easy access. But it goes back to something, and I want to bring it here. I just don't understand how we ended up where we are, where people send the wrong messages about victims. And I just heard it from JC, listening to her story, okay? How people in the media are saying they're victims of Stockholm Syndrome. None of this is true. Even somebody that's lived it can tell you. None of this is true. The Stockholm Syndrome, none of this. So to claim that some of these people are experts in their field, they're not acting like it. It's not journalism when you just start throwing out these stories. I don't know if they read off a teleprompter, but where did you get this information? Because I got a library of survivor books here that you need to read on as a reporter. You don't even know what you're saying when you're telling that all victims are survivors of Stockholm Syndrome, and that all victims are... I mean, I hear a lot of myths about survivors and victims, that they're going to go out and a large portion of them will go act out and be abusive. Not if you're in recovery. And I mean, I know more people in recovery and therapy. I just, that's why a lot of people, they don't know what to do with this. Okay, so let's refocus. Let's go back to what it's really about. I'm going to listen to the survivors, and I'm going to listen to the victims, and I'm going to make my own. I'm going to observe that. Observing some media people that have insulated and live in a bubble, I don't think they could make that reach. I don't think they can step over. But I noticed with Diane Sawyer, she did, and this is why so many journalists get the Pulitzer Prize. A lot of them get the Pulitzer Prize for journalism. That's why they get the Peabody Award, and those people don't. They're going to disappear. And at the end of the day, the ones that stick to the story, and like some people, their areas just more embedded, war correspondent, and to me, that's kind of what you're in on. And then when I look at like Bill Riley, he's a commentary. He holds that position. He's been there for a long time. And it's a lot easier to, throw your pen back and kind of throw a temper tantrum here and this and that and make commentary here. And a lot of times he has insight as a journalist, but he also is a teacher. And I would just refer to this. If both Bill Riley, being he is a teacher, can you really make that assumption as an educator when you know Bill O'Reilly, sir, you have been a teacher. There's basic safety issues here as a teacher. So as a journalist now, maybe you should comment on that, because there is reasons why mature adults, when they get a grip on this and they realize that this is not about some random reports. There's actually something that verified, legitimate information. It's verified, actually. And I don't know. I mean, I'm really surprised how the lack of content, the lack of experience, and some of the young reporters, and the Huffington Post is a good example, who shows up on a platform and starts touting off that if this was about white kids, then it would get more coverage. I mean, wow. I mean, that you want to talk about, that's just ugly. That's just downright ugly. And I'm thinking to myself, if I was a family of either white or black children missing, I don't think that's the time to capitalize on that. And that's shameful. That is absolutely shameful. I think it's the whole thing is that the media became the story. So for the journalists that stick to the story, I applaud you. Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. That's the whole point. You got to stick to the story, or just say, hey, I don't know that I can do this. And in the case of Alex Jones, I don't know that he can. But there are people that can, and that might be their area. To me, Alex, I look at Alex, and it's just somebody, when I'm going to look at like health and nutrition and survivor stories and war stories, I look to Alex Jones. When I look at certain people like David or some of the more mainstream news reporters, I'm going to look to them for specific things. When I don't even listen to Megyn Kelly, so, I mean, I used to really like Megyn. On this, she's totally wrong. I'm not saying I completely dislike her. I just think she took the wrong turn. And then I look at Bill Riley, and, Bill Riley, he's been an expert at what he's done for a long time. In my observation, he's been right on some things, but totally, sincerely, I mean, I don't know, let me take that back. He's sincere, but on this, he's sincerely wrong. Okay? Some of these people are just sincerely wrong. And the focus goes back to what side of the story are you taking, an opinion piece, commentary, or information, and doing a report on the victims, survivors, the working parts of it, or are you going to go down that road, that dark road where, into the mind of a psychopath? I don't know. So that's an editorial decision. People make their own editorial decisions. If you're going to subscribe to something, it's an editorial decision. You don't have to. That's a good thing. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to do this story. And in the case with Alex Jones, and I'm going to remind you guys, I did a op-ed on this. To me, I don't think Alex Jones that's a diversion. They're looking for just dependent on somebody, because they didn't want the focus to be on the story. They wanted to be the focus on Alex Jones. They wanted to be a focus on David. And you know what? If I'm going all the way down to Washington, D.C., and I want to hear a speech, the last thing I want to do is use that platform and, kind of tell my story. But everybody's coming from different experiences. And you listen to the guy that was at the stage who used to work at MSNBC. He brought in experience and an angle that most of us might not understand. Some of it comes from a family and survivors. Some people come at different directions. And the whole point to that was, and I didn't want to go down this road, I want to keep it really simple. It comes back to the story. And if people stick to the story and you do it a little bit at a time, here's the end game here. You do a little at a time, and you're going to find out over this period, it tends to weed itself out, okay? I know I can't constantly look at a story over and over again. I have to look at it from a whole new advantage. I have to look at it totally different. I can't just look at it with, tunnel vision. You have to, refocus. And sometimes I think maybe some of these reporters, maybe Bill O'Reilly, maybe Megyn Kelly, maybe they'll come back with a different angle someday. But right now, the people that stay with the story are going to be consistent, and they're going to stick to it, and they're going to stick to journalism. They're not going to stick to opinions and on, and just stick to the story. I think at some point what you notice is that the veteran reporters, they gain the trust of the public. And the idea is to gain the trust, because then you show you're consistent. You show that, yes, I've done this for several years. I've been embedded here. And then you got somebody with credibility, like in the case of Diane Sawyer. So it makes more sense. And some of you guys are really, really good reporters. I mean, actually, you're doing really, really good. And I just hope that you guys don't get caught up in a snare, because I see a lot of good people that know how to report. And you have to understand, and David Seaman came out of the mainstream. So it might take you a while, David, but a lot of us survived the media. I mean, you've actually seen it face to face. You've actually been embedded. So you actually are, and primarily you're coming out of enemy territory, and you're coming back to the brighter side of things. If that's so, I could see why you would get criticism, but maybe that's what makes you a good reporter. Maybe that's what's going to make you a better reporter. The idea is you learn from your mistakes, and some people might come back and they might actually have something to offer. And maybe years down the road, they'll say, you know what, I went the wrong direction with that. We got to be forgiving more as a public, because I'm going to tell you, I mean, you guys, you do have some good reporters out there. They might have made some mistakes, but I mean, right now, as it stands, I mean, some of them, they're just idiots. That's just plain and simple. Using a platform to, spew some PC crap, and like the case with the Huffington Post reporter using the platform down there in Washington, D.C. yesterday. She isn't going to be a reporter that long. That's the way I look at it. You'll see the ones that'll outlive this. Thank you for listening. The Court of Public Opinion is a part of the Amateur Radio Network.